Welcome to Made in Moray, the podcast that focuses on the successes and struggles of local businesses. Let's get started.
My name is G, I'm your host, and today I'm in ReBOOT in Forres with Lee McGRATH, who is the manager. Lee, thank you very much for joining me here today. Can you tell us a little bit about what the organization does?
Hi G, thanks for having a chat to me. We're ReBOOT in Forres. We're a computer recycling and reuse charity and social enterprise.
Wow, and what's your function within the organization?
I'm the general manager, if you wish. I oversee day-to-day operations and future development of the social enterprise.
Okay, if you were to describe ReBOOT to somebody who knew nothing about it, where would you begin?
That's a tough one. That is a tough one. I mean, on the surface, we recycle computer systems, so I'd probably start with that. Some people have said we recycle people as part of our enterprise, as part of our charity. We're here to deal with other people's problems.
Wow. So in terms of technology, because a lot of people are going to think about the organization in terms of a technological organization, because that's how I found out about it. I was like, where do I go with my computer if I need to get it fixed? Somebody said, come here. But it's so much more than a place that just refurbishes computers.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, we take hardware in from businesses and households across the north of Scotland. We'll assess it. If we can reuse it, that's the obvious bit. Or we'll recycle it. The bits that people probably don't see are the people in the community that we work with. Vast amounts of people from so many different backgrounds. Retired individuals that are maybe a bit lonely and want somewhere to come. Mm-hmm. People with hidden disabilities or physical disabilities that want to be involved. They want to upskill themselves. Long-term unemployed. Again, people that want to maybe update their CV, get some work experience under their belt, college and school placements as well, and even the occasional naughty boy and girl who's maybe involved in some light offences. It's very diverse, the people we work with, and the work that we do as well is quite diverse. We're not just all about creating reuse through sales. We'll donate to other charities and disadvantaged individuals.
We just had a little tour of the organization. So if people were to come here and have a little imaginary tour, what would they see on the way around? What would you point out to them? What are the things happening in the organization right now?
We've got very dedicated areas that are set up for testing of the hardware, for wiping of data, of dismantling of the hardware. Then there's a warehouse aspect to it where we're actually dealing with the end life waste. So there's a lot of palletizing and things going on there. It's a real eclectic mix. It's difficult to, without actually physically walking somewhere around and showing it. It's quite difficult to kind of explain. One of the key things, I guess, is the people. Mm-hmm. There's such a diversity of people within this building from all backgrounds. So that's probably one of the key things.
So if people want to have their computer cleaned, restarted, that's one of the sort of surface or operations that the organization does. But it's not the only thing, because you also deal with the waste that companies produce. Is that right?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, on an average year, we'll do about 100 tons. Wow. Of IT waste. Probably about 60-70% of that is commercial, so it's business waste, and then that last sort of 30-odd%, 20% is your household waste. So that's you and I saying we've got an old laptop, we've got an old PC, we don't know what to do with it. Right, bring it to ReBOOT. We'll deal with it. We'll sanitize the data. We'll try and reuse it if we can, and if we can't, we'll make sure that it's broken down and recycled in the right manner. So yeah, we do the repairs. That's great, because that stops people from either binning it or recycling something they don't need to recycle. So that's the kind of first port, is repair. Fix your computer, keep it going. Then if it's beyond economic reuse, if you wish, or you've decided you want to upgrade, that's when you come into the recycling side of things. And that's where we can benefit the community through donations and affordable sales of the reuse. But we can also then look at the creative aspects as well, which is something we haven't really spoken about much at the moment. But looking at that waste before it goes to end life recycling, is looking at it and saying, well, what else can we do with this in a creative manner? Can we do something else with it? And that's when you get your PlayStation clocks and your cat and a Mac, cat basket out of an old iMac and things. So early days for us with that, but yeah, quite a kind of a mix of things.
There's probably a lot of people who are not aware of what is actually within their computer or their printer or their gaming machines. So what are the different parts that have to be separated there?
You're looking at, use the example of a standard computer system. You're looking at the motherboards are probably one of the most polluting aspects of a computer system. It's got heavy metals, it's got precious metals in there. So the motherboard, the RAM, and various areas like that are key to make sure that you don't want these in a hole in the ground. You know, these need to be dealt with properly. Then you've got things like the power supplies, the casing, the metal casing, the plastic casing. Plastic's a big issue nowadays. People talk a lot about single-use plastics. The plastics from car industry, the IT industry, and the electrical industry generally need to be dealt with.
And right now we're sitting in part of the organization which is the creative innovative area. So what kinds of things happen in this specific area?
In the area we're actually sitting in at the moment, this is the creative aspect of it. So this is when the guys and girls that have been working on the recycling bench will take apart a computer system. Okay, and as they're taking apart, they'll look and they'll go, well, you know, this is quite an interesting, odd thing. Can we do something with it? There are things that we recognize that we can reuse in an upcycled manner. So what the guys will do is they'll then take those weird and wonderful aspects of the computer recycling, they'll bring it into the creative area where the guys will work on upcycling that into a new product, as I said, the PlayStation clock, whatever it may be. What we also do in here, though, and this is early days of working in collaboration with a fantastic social enterprise called Murray Reach Out, is looking at that plastic side of things. And what we're doing at the moment is segregating our plastic, granulating it, bringing it back here after MRO have done their fantastic granulation work on it, and then looking at extruding it. So we're talking about turning that into what fundamentally looks like a strimmer cable, something you'd put in your strimmer for your garden. With that, we can then print. So we can then print new products with recycled plastic. So the intention is to develop and research this area so that we can actually be 100%, you know, that closed loop, if you wish, that people tend to say in the recycling and environmental worlds. You know, we are closing the loop entirely. Your printer that you bring us and you recycle could end up being a coaster. Or it could end up being another product that we've printed and the plastic from that printer has been used.
These are fantastic ideas. You've been in the organization for a while, so there must have been some developments that you've overseen since your time here. So how long have you been here and what's been the progress?
I've been here since 2005, so I've been here a while now. I arrived as a development officer. At that time, ReBOOT was a traditional charity. It was grant-led. So the doors were closed. It was a fantastic operation, but not very publicly forward in their approach to things. Every year we were looking at redundancies and payoffs because we were relying on grant funding. So as my role as development officer, I looked at what was going on around the world. I was looking at, you know, other organizations doing similar things. And what we noted was that there's another way of doing this. There's a way of sustaining our operations without having to rely on grant funding as much. Great work that we do. There's not massive pots of money out there for everyone to take. We've got an asset, and that was the thing that we recognized. We deal with a commodity that comes in, IT waste. There's a way of developing this model in a way that would allow us to sustain ourselves, but also then not have to jump through the hoops of a grant funder. So what we did is we visited an organization down in Leeds. We looked at their model. We came back and we started looking at a sustainable approach to the work we do. So over the years since 2005, we've developed what is now traditionally known as a social enterprise. So we try and trade for all of our income, but all of our profit is invested entirely back into the organization and the community. So that gives us the opportunity to be able to give computer systems away to charities and disadvantaged individuals, but it also gives us the opportunity to have a little bit more flexibility, let's say, in our development. So we've developed from a traditional charity into a nearly sustainable social enterprise.
Mm-hmm. What would happen to all of the waste if this organization was not here?
The laws that govern electrical waste would say that it can't go in landfill anymore. And I think it was in around about 2004 that the WEEE directive, WEEE, came in place in the UK. This basically said that it was the producer's responsibility for the waste that they create. So Sony, HP, Dell, whoever they are, had to pay a portion. What would happen with the waste if we weren't dealing with it is probably a large commercial firm from maybe Central Belt or down south would be dealing with this. It would still be reused, it would still be recycled, but it wouldn't necessarily benefit the community as much as it does having us here.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that in general recycling is something that's on people's minds, or do you think it's something that they need to focus on a little bit more?
I think it's probably on people's minds because it's obviously with the nature of the way we work nowadays with social media. Everyone's got access to news that's specific to their viewing. So I think recycling is on people's minds. If it's as important for people, I'm not entirely sure. I mean, we've got a good footfall of people that use our services, but we will see repeat custom. We will see the individuals that consciously think about their waste. I think probably recycling focused nowadays is probably more on single-use plastics. That's been really big on in the headlines recently. They probably don't consider what happens to your car or what happens to your hi-fi system or your laptop when you've done with it. The beauty is that the WEEE directive does protect our environment from that waste stream, if you wish, the same as the cars have their own laws around obviously, dealing with that waste stream. I think more could be done. More could be done to raise the awareness of recycling. And in our industry specifically, as they call it, WEEE, so waste electrical electronic equipment.
Absolutely. What are the kind of hurdles that an organization like this faces? What are the things from maybe a business side of things that people don't see from the outside?
Well, we obviously have to be compliant, so that is, it's not so much a hurdle. It's I guess in a way it's a good measure of doing good work. So we have to be compliant with SEPA. We have to obviously be compliant with our financial side of things as well, and our how we manage our money. We have to be compliant with OSCA, the charities regulator. So we've probably got slightly more hoops than your average commercial firm to jump through. So there's a few hurdles there. One of the other hurdles is as well that people don't necessarily recognise that they'll see a voluntary organisation and they'll say, oh, you've got all this free labour. One of the things that really isn't recognised is, we work with a lot of people from disadvantaged backgrounds and with disabilities. There's a lot of management. You could probably employ 2 people to do a lot of the work out there, and they would do it efficiently, but it's not who we are. So I wouldn't say it was a hurdle, but it's an extra thing that we have to deal with in our day-to-day life, which is the management of lots of people with diverse needs.
And roughly how many people are in the organization right now, and what are their different functions? What do they do?
We've got a core team who are employed. There's 7 of us, and we oversee day-to-day operations from the sales and repairs in the shop to the management of our volunteers and trainees, to the background finance and administration, statistical information with the organization. We then have anywhere up to about 8 or 9, potentially at one occasion, of paid trainees who come through a government-funded initiative called Community Jobs Scotland. So these individuals will be with us for anywhere between 12 and 18 months in full or part-time paid placements. We then have about 40 volunteers. The volunteers, it's about an even split. About 50% of the volunteers have physical or hidden disabilities. A lot seem to come from people within the autistic spectrum. I'm not sure if it's the nature of the work that we do that kind of supports, their lives. The other aspects, the other 50% of the volunteers, they can come from elderly individuals that want to be part of something or maybe a bit isolated and lonely, up to members of our board of the charity who support us in a voluntary capacity on strategy and development. And then finally, we also have school and college work experience as well. So it's a real mix of people.
Wow. What are the sort of issues and problems that you have to deal with on a daily basis in this kind of organization?
I think management of people, obviously, as I said, I mentioned there earlier, the eclectic mix of people. So there is you are having to manage people that maybe haven't got that experience in work, but you don't want to be too fixed in your approach to it. You have to have a bit level of flexibility that maybe a standard commercial organization would just go, well, you're not turning up, you're sacked. So we have to be flexible and work with people. So that's, one day-to-day issue. Another one is actually working out sometimes what IT waste is coming to us. A lot of people use Google to find things out, so do we. We've got weird and wonderful things coming in, and that has to be recorded on an asset log, and sometimes the guys are looking going, I have no idea what that is. So yeah.
Do you ever get in strange things that are totally unexpected, or things you don't even know what it is? Do people
100%, yeah. That generally comes more from the business side of things. So say we're working with an oil company, they might have some specialist equipment it's still fundamentally IT. So we may get some weird and wonderful sort of sonar stuff, or quite obscure, where Google does help, because that allows us to find out what it is, and also find out if there's reuse in that item as well.
Yeah, so what would happen if something like that comes in? You would just, you go into Google, you search out more information about it, you see if it's recyclable, and if it is, you do something with it?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, if it's recyclable, when we talk in here, that would be broken down to component level and actually physically recycled. Reusable, obviously that would go down a different route. So if we can reuse, we'll always reuse. It has to be the most, important aspect of that part of our operation, because reuse always wins over recycling. So yeah, these odd things that come in, we'll donate them sometimes because there may not be much economic value to it, but there may be value to someone else in the community that would really benefit from one of these weird and wonderful things that come in.
What are you personally most proud of about the organization?
Probably the people again. I keep coming back to the people. You get a sense of pride when we have annual events where we kind of let our hair down and enjoy a bit of socializing and hanging out. And when you get the feedback, usually I think people have said before, you get some of the most honest things when you're in the pub and having a conversation. What we found there is that we get the feedback then. The trainees and volunteers will say, this place saved my life, or this place is my second family, and that fills you with a bit of emotion and a bit of pride there. You do think to yourself, we're doing something right, and that's not taking away from the environmental stuff we do. That seems to be the day-to-day bread and butter. But I think the pride comes from me in seeing the people's lives change.
And it must involve a lot of time on your part with the work, and this is probably not the only thing you do as well. So how do you manage your time? Where do you find inspiration and motivation for the work that you do?
I would say I manage my time appallingly. If you speak to the family, I'm never home at 5 o'clock when I should be. It's, I guess in a way, you benefit from nearly being a little bit like a sole trader, your own boss. I've got a really supportive board of management over the years who've been fantastic. And they'll be there. They'll make sure that I'm not overdoing it. They'll make sure that, I'm taking that time out for myself alongside the work that we do here at ReBOOT. The motivation for this sort of thing, I think, is again down to the people. You see these people in the workshops, or you see the people that have benefited from our donations. That motivates you. That really, it makes you feel good about yourself, that you're doing something good and you're helping out. So a lot of the motivation comes from that side of things. And then seeing what other people are doing. Again, the world of social media is fantastic. You can tap into fantastic information and stories around the world and locally that do inspire you. You see some fantastic work someone's doing, you think, can we do that? And kind of gets you motivated.
Absolutely. Is there an aspect of the business that you think could be a little bit better or could be improved? Is there something that you'd like to see done maybe in a different way? Or
I think the plastic's probably one of the things that we're working on now that we would like to be more improved with. We want to be able to close that loop. We want to be able to not just say we're recycling and it's getting sent away somewhere else to be dealt with. We want to deal with that here. We want the people that come to us and believe in us to see that piece of IT has been turned into some fantastic plastic project that hasn't been created, it's been reused. So we're going to continue working on that side of things. Our day-to-day operations, we're good. We can always improve. And we recognize that both with the people and our operational work. We've got some pretty stringent measures in place, and we capture most information coming out, which is good. But there's always a mark for improvement. We could do with a little bit more space, but in a way, being restricted in the space we have allows us to be quite efficient when we're dealing with our products.
If you had a magic wand and could change anything instantly about the business or about the industry or about regulations, what would you change instantly that would make your life a bit easier?
That's a tough one. The genie in the bottle. If I had a magic wand, we would certainly first have a little dabble at saying, let's have $100,000 just to allow us to sustain operations. It's always a worry, is the money, one of the biggest worries, being able to function. Legislation, it's actually pretty tight, and we're all pretty much in agreement with the way that in our particular field, IT waste is managed. It's strict enough but flexible enough. So that side of things, probably no real change. They do well. I think it would probably just be, get that genie and say to him, give us a couple of, a few grand just to boost up the cash flow and allow us just to develop and grow.
With the customers and clients that the organization does have, do they understand the complexity of the whole operation? Because I often get the feeling that people only see the face of an organization. They don't understand everything going on behind it. So what's it like there? I
would probably, to be honest, I think they referred to it before about early adopters, when you get your people that queue up for your Apple phone. We've probably got a similar thing here, where we haven't crossed the chasm between the early adopters and general understanding of what we do. A very small amount of people, I genuinely believe, know the full background to ReBOOT and everything that goes on in the background. A lot of people think we're just a commercial organization. Some think that we're just a woolly charity. So, some think we're just a little tiny computer shop that happens to deal with a little bit of old IT waste. So if we put it out maybe, in a percentage, I would say maybe 15% guess.
And what was your spark of interest that got you involved in the organization in the first place?
I'd gone through various things. I wasn't terribly good at school. Came out of college, liked IT. So I studied IT up to HNC, and then realized I really hated software. And that's all they were teaching. So I went off into different worlds, just doing any jobs that would kind of pay the bills. Went back to the UHI in the late 90s, early 2000s, and studied a degree in rural development. That sparked my interest in the environment and communities, and generally and people and economics as well. So having that interest in computing and then having that interest in the environment, this job came up at ReBOOT for a development worker, and everyone around me was saying you should be working there. And it kind of grew from there.
Do you think in the kind of work that you do that qualifications play an important role, or is experience more important?
I would probably say experience. And if I said anything different, I would be really arguing against what I'm actually bringing out in the individuals that we work with day to day. For me personally, you can see it. We visit schools and we do lots of other things with the education, fields. What we've found is that qualifications are fantastic and they're vitally important depending on what you want to do. Experience is equally as important, and you can see the way the education's industries, they are changing, they're recognising it. We've got developing youth workforce now in Moray, and obviously across the country. These guys recognise that bridge between the world of work and the world of education. So both have equal value, but I think it depends on the individual. Some individuals, and we see it here day to day, they work shadowed with a guy that's got a bit more experience with them, and they really come out of the shell, and you know, they prove that they're amazing individuals at what they do. Other individuals can come in here with a degree, and because of their mindset and the way that they work, they can't necessarily work in that shadowed environment. So I would say both are important, but down to the people.
What advice would you give to young people who maybe are interested in working with technology or starting their own business?
Firstly, have that passion. I think that's got to be it, you know, and they probably will. I mean, if they're into IT, they're gonna, you know, they enjoy what they do. So do it at home. Build your own computer. You know, develop that passion at your home, like anyone else would. As much as someone that likes football would go and play football a lot. You know, develop the passion. Find places. Don't think volunteering is, you know, just free labor for a company. Volunteering can help in so many different ways. It can give you that road into work. It gives you that practical experience. Go to college, go to university if that's the route you need to go on, but live that passion, enjoy it. I guarantee you, IT support is needed everywhere.
So true. How is the male to female ratio in terms of people who are maybe interested in following that kind of technical pathway?
Here at ReBOOT, it's quite unbalanced, I have to say. I mean, we've got a very small proportion of girls that come to us. We're not entirely sure why. We think it's possibly down to just the nature that it's geeky and it's boy-like working in tech. We do have girls that come here that thoroughly enjoy what they do, but when we proportion it out, it's probably about, I'd say, you'd be looking at about 85% boys. I think it's just the nature of what we do here. As I say, I'm using ReBOOT as an example there. It's partly one of the reasons why we wanted to encourage the creative aspects of what we're doing where we're sitting now, to hopefully encourage more girls to come along and get involved, and then maybe see the technical side and go, I'd like to get more involved in, you know, software, hardware maintenance, whatever it may be.
Super. If there was one thing that the community could or perhaps should do to support an organization doing great work like this or any other similar organization, how could the community get involved?
Use us. It's as simple as that. Use us. Bring your old IT waste to us. If you've got a problem with your computer system, come. You know, there are fantastic computer shops out there that you've got to use as well, because small businesses need the support of the community as much as businesses, you know, and social enterprises like ReBOOT. But use our services. Take that IT waste to us. Come and buy a refurbished computer system from us. You know, if one of your children needs some work experience, come to us. Use us.
Absolutely. If the business was on fire and everybody got out okay, but you only had time to run in and grab one thing, what would you grab?
Wow. Okay. Let's think.
It's a bit of a tangent.
That's yeah. I was thinking if it was home, it would be a different question, but we're talking about.
I just changed it from.
Yeah. I'm just thinking. I would say it would probably have to be. No, I was going to say the IT systems, obviously, because that's got all our, you know, all our data. Yeah. In our day-to-day management, but that's safe and backed up, so that, you know, you
got everything backed up, right?
Yeah. So I'm just trying to think what we would take. Well, in saying that, we've got one volunteer I haven't mentioned. He's a four-legged friend. He's not here today. His name's Max. So when you're saying if all the people were cleared out, we would have to make sure that Max got out there as well. He hangs out in our front workshop there, so we'd have to make sure Max was safe and sound as well.
That's great. Where can people learn more about the organization and what it does?
Nowadays, social media we try and keep up on, so they can check us out on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. They can come along. Give us a shout. If you want to have a look about, let me know. We'll give you a tour. We're quite open to show people what we do. We've got to get the balance. We've got to make sure we do the work as well. But yeah, give us a shout, pop along. We've got a website, possibly not as up to date as it should be for an IT company. But as I say, a painter never paints his own house. So that's something we should be looking at there. But yeah, look up on social media, website, or come down, because I guarantee you one thing: if you come down, we can show you. And no matter how many things we put up on Facebook or other sites, you won't really get that impression until you stand here with the people day to day and you see what we do.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for your time today. I really appreciate all the information and wish you great success in the future.
Thank you, G. Cheers.
Made in Moray is a product of the Academy of Language Therapy and Life Coaching. Book a free online personal or professional development consultation today. What are you waiting for?